Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space and another Halloween video for my 2025 Halloween series. I will have a link in the end screen at the end of this video to my playlist that I will just continue adding to as I get Halloween cards made. Now, today's video, we're going to do a quick little walkthrough first to explain. Let's pop the camera down and this will make a little more sense. So, this was a little over a month ago, I think, something. Simon's Stamp released several coordinating die sets for several of the Tim Holtz stamp sets. Now, if you're not familiar, Tim Holtz stamp sets are made by Stampers Anonymous. Have been for many years. There are hundreds of sets that he's done over the years. This is like CMS 408, and I forget what we're up to now. There's a lot. Starting, it was a couple years ago, whenever it was, Simon's Stamp started doing some coordinating die sets in partnership with Tim Holtz to coordinate with some of these sets. And I will post a link with the supplies to that category. You can check them out. There's roughly 50 different die sets now available for several of the different sets. And I assume, depending on demand, they'll continue to do this. So, these ones were released, again, roughly about a month ago. Sold out across the board really quickly, so I've been waiting. As of me filming this portion, I think all the die sets are currently available. Again, as of me filming this, a couple of stamp sets are still out of stock, but you might already have them. And you might want to get the dies. And then, like I said, there's other die sets that I'll have linked. So you can check those out, because who doesn't love coordinating dies? So these are the ones right now that I'm going to show specifically. So we've got the Sketch Manor. So you got the stamp set, which is just fabulous. The die set's actually really cool. This die set specifically is more than just coordinating dies. There's actually several in here that die cut like the house and then separate portions of it. So there's a die for this, there's a die for this portion, etc., etc. So you can layer everything up. Really cool. I would have loved even just having the outline, but then they went in, and I think this was Nina Marie Trapani that did all this. Even to the point where the wafer die for, the one for the door will cut right there, so you can actually make brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So there's that one, and then there's the die set for the Halloween doodles. So we got that, and then it's coordinating wafer dies to die cut out all the things. Love it. I love that this little stamp, the dies will cut these out individually, which is really fun. So you can stick them wherever you want. Got that one, Pumpkinhead, which I've had the stamp set for a while. Love that we now have coordinating dies for it. Again, it saves me around your fussy cut. And this is just a really good stamp set. I love it. I love it. So we got that one. There's the Halloween sketchbook. And for those that might not be familiar, some of the sets, because all of the Tim Holtz sets are red rubber on cling foam. Some come weeded, which means just like this, that's how they come. Some sets come with it like this, everything's been cut out. So you just actually pop these pieces, and it's just personal preference whether you want to keep the negative. Generally, if the set comes with that, I keep it, because then it shows me at a glance. It's oh, a stamp is missing. I need to put it back. That's where it belongs. So I personally just keep it, unless it's one of his sets that has a bajillion. I might not. I keep it though. So just FYI. So, coordinating dies for the Halloween sketchbook. Keep them all together. We got the Tiny Frights. This one's really cute for tags and stuff. This is just this is just a quirky. They're all quirky. Really. They're all quirky. So got that one. And then this one, which you can use for anything. I really love the detail. You can't go wrong. I've talked about this a lot with greenery leaves. They just work for so many things. So this is Nature's Wonder. And then, the coordinating wafer dies, which just makes me super happy. And I really love the sentiments in this one too. So Love it. Love it. And yeah, I will have links and then just keep watching and we'll get into making something. So I couldn't not use the Sketch Manor set because I love it. Love it. Love it so much. So, because these are cling foam red rubber stamps, I pull the grip mat out of my MISTI. If you don't have a grip mat, you just pull the black foam out of your MISTI because you need that clearance for red rubber and cling foam stamps. And then I have 4 panels of cardstock. To use the coordinating die set, like properly, you need to stamp the Sketch Manor image 4 times. I'm stamping it onto some gray cardstock and then twice on gray cardstock and twice on purple cardstock. You can do whatever you want. If I had unlimited hours, I really also want to stamp this onto, distressed watercolor paper and then like do some really easy spooky watercolor with like distress ink reinkers. That was another idea I had, but I haven't figured it out yet how to, get those extra hours, but this was so fun. So fun. So I am inking up and stamping with Simon's Premium Black Ink because I plan on doing some alcohol marker coloring. If I was going to do watercoloring, like I said on like watercolor paper, I could either stamp with this ink or I could use like VersaFine Clair or archival ink would also work. Just depends on what you're doing. So after I stamp the images, I die cut them with the coordinating dies. And yeah, once it's like done in this sense and you start laying everything out, it's like, oh, this is fun, like, yep. So I got all my little pieces and just like this, it's super fun. Like, there you go. You layer that piece on top and then that piece and then this one and the next one and the next one and you're golden, So sky's the limit. You could go all out, pop things up with, foam tape, add lights, like so many things. I kept this fairly simple because I wanted to, build a scene and a card and all the things. And to add just a bit of depth and dimension though, like I said, I used alcohol markers. And I've talked about this a lot. When it comes to using, whether it's alcohol markers or just dye inks, anything transparent. So dye inks, alcohol markers, water-based markers, that sort of a thing. When you're using them on anything other than white, like a white background, whether it's white cardstock, white watercolor paper, whatever, always remember that everything is going to look significantly darker on a different color of cardstock, just a darker cardstock, whatever, until it's dry. So I say that because some of this that I'm applying at first, it's like, wow, that's a little intense. Like you're losing all the definition here. Like this light VO5 marker. It looks dark when I'm first applying it, but that's because the cardstock is wet. The second this dries, it dries back significantly. So this is what I mean about like using just darker bases and anything that's transparent. So alcohol markers are transparent. A lot of water-based markers are transparent. Most dye inks are transparent. So I say all that to just remind you, because sometimes you'll go in and color something or ink blend something or whatever, and then, by the time you're done, it's like, where did it all go? Like, what happened? It dried. So if you're not sure or you're new to it, just take some scraps, pull out some markers or inks or whatever you want to use, and just scribble them on there, and then let them fully dry. And then that'll give you an idea of like, oh, I need to go a lot darker, or, it helps. So with something like this though, also, this is what I love. 1, it's Halloween. 2, images like this that look very intimidating. And trust me, I get it. I used to think, I was like, what am I going to do? Like, look how detailed this is. That's actually perfect. The more detail, the less coloring you need to do. Because the detail's already there. Like this Sketch Manor, the detail is there. All of that shading and sketchy little bits. You just need to slap some color on and you're good to go. And that's literally what I was doing. This is very sped up in editing. I don't color this quickly, but I was just slapping color on, because we're going to layer it up. There's going to be splatter. This is part of a scene, all the things. So I just wanted to add just, that extra bit of depth. So I went through and did all that with the alcohol markers. And then to layer all my pieces, I just glued everything down with liquid glue. But like I said, you could like either use like foam tape, or for some of the more delicate little parts here with these dies, I thought about like die cutting extra pieces just to, layer up behind. You could, so many ideas. But I decided to just layer everything just as is with liquid glue because I have other things I'm going to add to my card scene. So we just did it like that. And then I took a white gel pen and also added just scribbly little highlights all over the place. No rhyme or reason. No real thought process in terms of like light source, because I've talked about that a lot. I don't really care. I just don't, It's like, especially with like stuff like Halloween, whatever. I was like, this is all just for real make believe, whatever insane thought process coming out of my brain space, So I just scribbled the white gel pen wherever, on the window panes, whether or not you want to even acknowledge that those are actual panes, or if there's no glass at all. It's all been broken into, depending on the story you create in your head, because I do that too a lot. But it did make everything pop. So this was just fun. So I scribbled on all those little highlights. And then I ended up stamping the moon onto just a scrap of that same gray cardstock. And with this one, I used cool grays, because on the house, I used warm grays. So that just gives it a slightly different look. And same thing, all this is looking, quite a bit darker with the alcohol markers, but a lot of this will dry back, and fade right out. So I just added those little bits just to emphasize the little details on that stamp. And then for my background panel, I originally was going to do an A2 size card because that's what I do 99% of the time. And I was still going to do it, but then I was like, started digging through my stash and came across another die set, all the things. And I was like, I need more real estate for this. So I'm going to do a 5x7 card. And I've got some distressed watercolor paper here that's just shy of 5x7. It's like 4 3/4 by 6 3/4, something like that. And I am blending distress oxide inks onto this. And at first, this is going to look like an absolute hot mess. There's a method to the madness. It's all going to come together. I used Lost Shadow and Antique Linen first. That's where the moon is going to go. And then I blended into it some shaded lilac, which doesn't look shaded lilac at first, but that was more because also my brush has whatever other shades of purple on it. I'm not too worried about it. But added that. I added some chipped sapphire. Went back with a bit more of that shaded lilac. And I'm just kind of going in a circular motion, kind of having it, fade out from where the moon is going to go. And then some Villainous Potion, just to bring in a bit more of that purple. And then along the bottom, I am adding Vintage Photo. I'm going to add a bit of Walnut Stain and a bit of Rustic Wilderness. Just, at this point, just kind of slapping it on. Like, this is just going to kind of create the background, create my scene. And then because these are Distress Oxide inks and they're very water reactive, I hold my Distress sprayer a couple feet above, only press it halfway, the nozzle, and that creates a splotchy effect that I pick up with the paper towel. So I've got that whole splotchy effect going on. I made sure this was all completely dry before stamping or doing anything else. So it's now dry. I'm going to put this panel back into my MISTI, and I'm going to stamp the little bat image and there's 2 little spooky little fence stamps in the Sketch Manor set. So I'm just going to kind of line these up, and then I'm going to ink these up and stamp them with that same black ink. So get those stamped just like so. Love it. I love it. Can't go wrong with that kind of stuff. So then I pulled out, there is a link for this. I doubt it's still even on the market. This is the Vault Series Halloween 2021 die set, which I of course purchased, and it's just been sitting here because I collect all this stuff. Anyway, I die cut a couple scraps of Desert Storm cardstock with the like plank die from that set. And then for my sentiment, I pulled out Simon Says Stamps Oh Frank stamp set. This came out a couple of years ago, I think. And the big Happy Halloween stamp was just perfect. It was just perfect. Sometimes, when the stars align and everything's like coming together, and I just, give myself a little pat in the back for finding things in my stash more than anything. Sometimes I think I do deserve a treat for that. So anyway, I stamped that onto the die cut with the black ink. And then I took those same Copic markers and just did a very intentionally streaky mess to kind of make it look like a wood plank. So I just went back and forth with these different markers to create this, just again, a little more depth, a little more dimension to this piece. And yeah, I was really happy with how this turned out. Like, the sentiment was the perfect size, the perfect length. Again, it doesn't always happen that way. So once I was done, adding all the alcohol marker streaks to color it, I die cut a second one from scraps as well, and just adhered them together just to give it that little extra bit of strength. Now, in that Vault Series Halloween die set is some little trick-or-treaters. And I had die cut that from a scrap of black cardstock and then added just some little white gel pen highlights just to give it that little extra something. So I've got those. And then I took some double-sided adhesive and some vellum. There's these little ghost dies in that set. And I am taking the vellum. And instead of normally what I would do is put the double-sided adhesive on the back of the vellum and then die cut it with the little ghosts and then peel off the backing because it basically turns them into stickers. But instead of doing that, I put the double-sided adhesive on the back of the vellum and then I'm going to press that to another piece of vellum. So I am sandwiching 2 layers of vellum together with some double-sided adhesive. And that's going to make the vellum a little bit thicker, a little bit more sturdy. And then I'm going to die cut it with these ghosts. You could maybe have put another piece of the double-sided adhesive on the back of this. If you did, you would probably need to use a shim, especially with dies like this. Like these dies, like where the little arms and the little bottom bits are very delicate. So I'm not sure if that would work. I wasn't worried about putting adhesive on the back because of how I'm going to attach these. And I'm going to show that in a second. So I just wanted the 2 layers of vellum though, because it just gave it that extra strength, because these are only going to be attached just barely. And then they're just like kind of, because they're floating out from the house. This will make sense in a second. So I popped the bits out. I left the interior, like their little mouths and eyes. Those could be popped out, but I just left them as is because they were basically kind of stuck because of that adhesive. And then to attach them, I put Simon's Big Mama foam tape on the back of the die cut sketch Manor. I'm going to peel off the backing, and then I'm going to attach the ghost to the back of this, to the double-sided foam tape, just like that. So that's the only spot that's holding these on. And because that vellum is doubled up with that double-sided adhesive, they just stick out like that. And it works. It works. So sometimes I have some pretty decent ideas. Other times, brain is mush. Anyway. Once those guys were in place with the sketch Manor, I popped the moon into place and the sentiment with that same just Big Mama foam tape, just building up that bit of dimension. And then the little trick-or-treaters, I'm going to pop up with some foam squares because at this point now I've got a pretty decent amount of dimension here. So put some little foam squares on the bottom portion of this, and then I'll just put a little bit of liquid glue on the top portion to adhere it to kind of that house. And that's going to create my scene, my little spooky Halloween trick-or-treater scene. This was so fun. So I got those adhered into place. And then I was like, oh, I forgot splatter. Because I did it with the water bottle, or like this, spraying. But I was like, we need like actual splatter. So just put this whole thing into my splat box and put some black gouache onto my palette and then splattered. Sometimes I've shown, covering the sentiment, masking things off. With this, I did not care. It didn't matter because it is, a creepy, spooky Halloween scene. And if splatter gets where it gets, like Tim Holtz says, you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. So I just splattered away, and then set that aside to dry. And my card base is 5x7. So I cut some more Desert Storm cardstock. I cut it to 10x7 and scored it at 5 inches. So it'll make a side fold 5x7 card. And after I made my card base, and then I was like looking at this and I was like, it just wasn't there. I was like, it needs something. So what I did was I took just black soot distress ink and a little blending brush, and I'm just going to go around the perimeter with this. It's a little bit messy, but I don't care. It just gave that extra little bit of depth around the edge. Another option would be, if you didn't want to do this, or depending on how you have things adhered, would be to just cut a black mat of cardstock you know, to go behind this and just have a little bit of a black frame. I thought about that, but instead I went with the Black Soot Distress ink because it just worked. So I just blended that around the edges and it just finished it off the way my brain needed it to be. So blended all of that. And then for the inside of the card, again, took the grip mat out of my MISTI, put the card inside, or the card base inside there, and I'm going to stamp the sketch Manor with Simon's Fawn ink. Just a light ink, something easy to write over. So I'm going to stamp that on the inside, and then I also decided to stamp the moon and the bats because, again, we got a 5x7 card. There's plenty of space here to add extra. So I'm going to line those up and stamp those as well. And then once those are stamped, for my final sentiment, there was the Happy Haunting stamp in that O Frank set, which was also just chef's kiss. Like, I was kind of digging through some things and I was like, what am I going to use on the inside, like for the final sentiment? And then I was looking at that and I was like, oh, well, it was just meant to be. It was just meant to be. So line that up. And then that I'm going to stamp with the premium black ink. And then that's going to finish off the inside of the card. So once that's done, I just need to adhere the card front to the card base. And then I pulled out some gold sequins from Trinity Stamps, like some gold confetti to adhere to my background. Gives it that little bit of bling and just gives it that little extra something. So those I just adhere with little dabs of liquid glue. I just pick them up with my embellishment wand and press them into a little tiny dab of glue. And just all over the place, you know. Just cuz. So once I'm happy with the amount of stars I have placed on the background, I just need to let the glue dry and this card is complete. This was a lot of fun. And that sketch Manor with those wafer dies are so fun. Again, if you really wanted to build or do more of like something for display, or if you wanted to pop everything up with foam tape, like all those layers, you would just need to mail this in like a bubble envelope, something like that. But even just layering them like I did, like just gluing them together, it just works. It was so fun. So, like I mentioned in the beginning, I'll have links to all the things in the description box below the video. You can expand that and check it out. And I'll have a link to my blog post as well, where there will be picture links in the blog post, a little easier to navigate. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me, thumbs upping and commenting. I appreciate it so very much. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye. Thank you so much to my amazing Patreon supporters. For anyone that might be interested in joining my Patreon community and supporting me, the link to my Patreon is in the description box below the video. For everyone else, as always, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't, I'd love to have you. And here's a couple other videos for you to check out in case you missed them. Bye!